Senator Ted Cruz thought he had cornered Jasmine Crockett. He issued a public challenge on live radio, demanding she prove her intelligence with an IQ test, certain the Harvard-educated constitutional lawyer would expose her as unqualified for Congress. But just 15 seconds after she responded, his face told a completely different story. The confident smirk vanished. His eyes went cold. The swagger drained from his entire body, replaced by the unmistakable look of a man who just realized he had made a catastrophic mistake. What she said in those 15 seconds didn't just reject his challenge. It redefined what intelligence actually means in American leadership. And it left one of the Senate's most notorious debaters completely and utterly speechless. This is the story of how Jasmine Crockett turned the tables on Ted Cruz so decisively that even his own supporters had to admit, he walked straight into a trap of his own making. But here's what nobody saw coming. What happened in those 15 seconds wasn't just a clever comeback. It was something far more devastating. Stay with me, because what you're about to witness will change how you think about political debates forever. In the brutal arena of American politics, there's an unwritten rule that has destroyed more careers than scandal ever could. Never underestimate your opponent based on who you think they are. Throughout history, the greatest political collapses haven't come from policy failures or moral scandals. They've come from pure, unfiltered arrogance. From leaders so convinced of their own superiority that they can't see the cliff edge until they're already falling. And Ted Cruz? He was about to step right over that edge. For years, Senator Cruz built his entire brand around one central message. He's the smartest person in any room. Princeton debate champion, Harvard law graduate, Supreme Court clerk, constitutional expert who's argued 9 cases before the highest court in the land. He wears these credentials like armor, constantly reminding America of his intellectual dominance. And to be fair, his resume is genuinely impressive. But there's a difference between being credentialed and being wise. Between memorizing law books and understanding justice. Between winning arguments and serving people. Ted Cruz was about to learn that difference the hardest way possible. The stage was set on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. Cruz appeared on The Mark Davis Show, a conservative talk radio program broadcast across Texas and syndicated nationally. He was comfortable here, friendly territory, supportive audience, softball questions designed to let him shine. For 40 minutes, he dominated the conversation. He attacked Democratic policies with surgical precision. He mocked progressive congresswomen for what he called their emotional reasoning and lack of basic economic understanding. And then the host, sensing Cruz was on a roll, tossed him what seemed like a perfect setup question. Senator, you've debated some of the greatest legal minds in America. How do you think you'd match up intellectually against someone like Representative Jasmine Crockett? Cruz's eyes lit up. This was his moment. But what he didn't know, what nobody in that studio could have predicted, was that Jasmine Crockett was already watching, already listening, already preparing a response that would echo through political history. The trap was set. Cruz was about to walk right into it. If you think you know where this is going, trust me, you don't. Keep watching because what happens next will leave you speechless. And if you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss moments like these. Ted Cruz leaned back in his chair, that familiar confident smirk spreading across his face. The radio host had just served him exactly what he wanted, a chance to publicly demonstrate his intellectual superiority. Well, Mark, that's a fascinating question, Cruz began, his voice dripping with condescension. You know, I've spent considerable time watching Representative Crockett on the House floor and in committee hearings. And what strikes me most is the gap between her confidence and her actual comprehension. He paused for effect, letting his words sink in. She throws around legal terminology she clearly doesn't fully understand. She makes passionate speeches that sound impressive to people who don't know better. But when you actually analyze her arguments, there's very little substance beneath the rhetoric. The host laughed, encouraging him to continue. The problem with the modern Democratic Party, Cruz continued, warming to his theme, is they've prioritized identity and emotion over actual intellectual capacity. They send people to Congress who look good on camera and sound passionate, but who fundamentally lack the mental horsepower to handle complex constitutional questions. And then he went for the kill. So here's what I'm going to do, Mark. Right here, right now, I'm officially challenging Representative Jasmine Crockett to take a standardized IQ test with me. Side by side. Live broadcast. Let the American people see once and for all who actually has the intellectual capacity to serve in Congress. The studio erupted. The host was delighted. Calls started flooding the switchboard. Conservative social media lit up with excitement. Cruz sat back, arms crossed, looking like a chess master who had just declared checkmate. He had thrown down a gauntlet he was certain she couldn't pick up. After all, who would be foolish enough to publicly test their intelligence against a Harvard Law graduate? I'm serious about this, Cruz added, his voice hardening. I'm tired of watching unqualified people make decisions that affect millions of Americans. If Representative Crockett truly believes she belongs in Congress, she should have no problem proving it with objective measurements. He leaned forward, staring directly into the microphone as if Jasmine could hear him. So what do you say, Congresswoman? Or are you afraid the American people might learn the truth? The challenge was public. The gauntlet was thrown. Ted Cruz sat back with complete confidence, certain he had just scored a decisive political victory. What he didn't realize was that at that exact moment, 15 miles across Washington, D.C., Jasmine Crockett was sitting in the MSNBC studios preparing for a live interview with Joy Reid. And she had heard every single word. The producer rushed into the green room, phone in hand, showing Jasmine the clip that was already going viral across social media. Joy Reid's team made an instant decision. They were going to address this live, on air, right now. As the cameras went live, Joy looked at Jasmine with barely contained excitement. Congresswoman, I need to show you something that just happened literally moments ago. The screen split. On one side, Ted Cruz delivering his challenge. On the other, Jasmine Crockett watching it in real time, her expression unreadable. The entire nation held its breath. What happens next isn't just a political moment. It's a masterclass in dignity, wisdom, and the kind of leadership that can't be measured by any test. Stay watching, because in just a few seconds, you'll witness something truly extraordinary. Don't forget to drop a comment below with your thoughts. The clip finished playing. Ted Cruz's voice still echoed with arrogance and challenge. The studio fell silent as Joy Reid turned to Jasmine Crockett. Congresswoman, your immediate reaction to what Senator Cruz just said? For a moment, Jasmine said nothing. She simply looked at the camera with an expression that held no anger, no outrage, no wounded pride. Instead, her face showed something far more powerful, a calm, centered clarity mixed with profound disappointment. Not disappointment in being challenged. Disappointment in what that challenge revealed about the man who made it. When she finally spoke, her voice was measured, steady, and absolutely devastating. Joy, thank you for showing me that. I think it's important that the American people see what Senator Cruz just revealed about himself. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Senator Cruz wants to talk about IQ tests. He wants to measure intelligence with a number on a piece of paper. He wants to reduce the sacred responsibility of serving the American people down to who can score higher on a standardized exam. Her voice grew stronger, more focused. But here's what the senator doesn't seem to understand. The most important test any of us face, especially those of us privileged to serve in Congress, has nothing to do with memorization or academic credentials or debate trophies. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked on the camera as if speaking directly to Ted Cruz himself. The real test is this. Do you tell the American people the truth, even when it's politically inconvenient? Do you stand up for what's right, even when your party pressures you to stay silent? Do you fight for people who have no power, no platform, and no ability to fight for themselves? The studio was absolutely silent. Even Joy Reid seemed transfixed. Those are the scores that history keeps, Senator Cruz. Those are the measurements that actually matter. And on that test, the only test that counts, you have failed. Repeatedly. 15 seconds. That's all it took. 15 seconds to completely reframe the entire conversation. To reject his challenge and offer a far more important one in return. To elevate the discourse from playground taunts to genuine questions of character and leadership. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because while Jasmine delivered those 15 seconds with grace and power, something else was happening simultaneously. Something that would become the defining image of this entire confrontation. The MSNBC production team, in a stroke of broadcasting genius, had kept a small feed of Ted Cruz's radio show running in the corner of the screen. While most viewers focused on Jasmine's response, that small box captured something extraordinary. It captured Ted Cruz's face as he watched her response on a monitor in the radio studio. And what that face revealed was worth 1,000 words. The confident smirk melted away like ice under a blowtorch. His eyes, which had been gleaming with self-satisfaction just moments before, went completely flat. His jaw tightened. His entire body language shifted from swagger to rigid discomfort. This wasn't the face of an angry politician preparing a counterattack. This wasn't a debater calculating his next move. This was something far more primal and far more honest. This was the face of a man who suddenly, horrifyingly understood that he had miscalculated, that he had challenged someone to the wrong test, that he had revealed more about his own character than he ever intended. It was the unmistakable, unforgettable look of pure, instant, absolute regret. Social media exploded within seconds. The split-screen image went viral immediately. Within minutes, millions of people were sharing the same observation. Ted Cruz had just been intellectually and morally demolished in 15 seconds. Conservative commentators tried to spin it. Progressive hosts celebrated it. But honest observers across the political spectrum had to admit the same basic truth. Jasmine Crockett had just delivered one of the most devastating responses in modern political history. And she had done it without raising her voice, without insults, without playing his game. She had simply rejected his definition of intelligence and offered a better one. And in doing so, she had exposed the profound emptiness of his challenge. But wait, because this story isn't over. What happened in the hours after this moment is even more revealing. Keep watching to see how Ted Cruz tried to recover, and why it only made things worse. And hey, if this story is hitting home, smash that subscribe button so you never miss content like this. In the immediate aftermath of Jasmine's response, something remarkable happened across America. Something that transcended normal political battle lines. People started asking a question that cuts to the heart of what leadership actually means. What does it mean to be smart enough to lead? Ted Cruz spent the rest of that radio show trying to recover. He attempted jokes. He doubled down on his credentials. He insisted that, of course, character matters, but so does competence, and competence can be measured. But the damage was done. Every word he said now seemed defensive, reactive, small. The confident prosecutor had become the uncomfortable defendant, and everyone could hear it in his voice. The calls flooding into the radio station told the story. Even conservative listeners were uncomfortable with how the exchange had unfolded. "Senator, I voted for you twice. one caller said, but I'm not sure challenging a sitting congresswoman to an IQ test was the right move here. It just doesn't feel. I don't know, senatorial. Cruz tried to laugh it off, but his laugh sounded hollow. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's interview with Joy Reid continued. And this is where her true character showed through. She didn't gloat. She didn't mock. She didn't turn Cruz into a punchline, even though she easily could have. Instead, she used the moment to talk about something larger. Joy, here's what troubles me about moments like this, Jasmine said, her voice thoughtful. We've created a political culture where credentials and academic pedigrees matter more than character and service. Where being able to win an argument is more valued than being able to improve someone's life. She shook her head slightly. I grew up in a working-class family. My parents didn't go to Ivy League schools. But they taught me something no university ever could, that true wisdom comes from listening to people, understanding their struggles, and fighting for solutions that actually help them. Joy Reid nodded, clearly moved. Senator Cruz has impressive degrees, Jasmine continued. I respect that. Education matters. Intelligence matters. But it's not enough. Not nearly enough. Because you can have all the book knowledge in the world and still lack the moral courage to use it for good. She looked directly into the camera again. The American people don't need representatives who can score well on tests. They need representatives who will tell them the truth, even when it's hard. Who will stand up to powerful interests, even when it costs them politically. Who will remember that every vote we cast affects real people with real lives and real struggles. It was a masterclass in taking the high road while still making a devastating point. Within hours, the contrast couldn't have been more clear. Ted Cruz's social media accounts were flooded with criticism, mockery, and disappointment, much of it from his own supporters. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's mentions exploded with support from across the political spectrum. But perhaps the most telling moment came later that evening, when a prominent conservative columnist, someone who had consistently defended Cruz in the past, published a piece titled, "When Smart Isn't Enough." Senator Cruz may have multiple degrees, the columnist wrote, but Congresswoman Crockett demonstrated something more important today, wisdom. And wisdom, unlike intelligence, can't be taught in a classroom or measured by a test. It comes from character. And character comes from choices. The piece went viral in conservative circles, sparking a genuine conversation about what qualities truly matter in political leadership. Ted Cruz tried one more time to control the narrative. Late that night, he posted on social media, "Despite the liberal media's spin, my point stands. Voters deserve to know their representatives have the intellectual capacity to handle complex issues. I stand by my challenge." The responses were brutal, even from his supporters. "Senator, you're missing the point," one top reply read. "She didn't refuse your challenge. She gave you a better one. And you're failing it right now by doubling down instead of reflecting." The story gets even more interesting from here. Because what Jasmine did next showed why she understood this moment better than Cruz ever could. Stay tuned, and don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts on what real leadership looks like. The next morning, Jasmine Crockett appeared on a different news program. The host, expecting her to continue attacking Cruz, was surprised by her opening statement. "I want to be clear about something," Jasmine said. "Yesterday wasn't about me versus Senator Cruz. It was about a much bigger question. What do we value in our leaders?" She took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "I've thought a lot about Senator Cruz's challenge overnight. And you know what? I actually agree with part of his point. Competence matters. Knowledge matters. We should want smart people in Congress." The host looked confused. "So you're saying—" "I'm saying intelligence is necessary, but it's not sufficient," Jasmine interrupted gently. "Senator Cruz is undeniably intelligent. His academic record proves that. But intelligence without integrity is dangerous. Knowledge without compassion is hollow. Credentials without courage are meaningless. She leaned forward, her expression earnest. Here's what I wish Senator Cruz understood. The American people aren't asking us to prove how smart we are. They're asking us to prove how much we care. They're watching to see if we'll fight for them when it's hard, if we'll tell them the truth when it's uncomfortable, if we'll put their needs above our political ambitions. The host nodded slowly. And you believe Senator Cruz has failed that test? I believe Senator Cruz has shown us his priorities, Jasmine said carefully. He's more interested in proving he's the smartest person in the room than in making that room better for the people who sent him there. And that's a tragedy, because imagine what he could accomplish if he used all that intelligence in service of something bigger than his own ego. It was a devastating critique wrapped in genuine sadness. Not mockery, not contempt, just disappointment at wasted potential. The interview went viral for a completely different reason than the previous day's confrontation. This time, people shared it with comments like, "This is what leadership sounds like," and "She's taking the absolute highest road possible." Meanwhile, Ted Cruz's team was in damage control mode. His staff released a statement attempting to clarify his position, but the careful political language only highlighted the contrast between his response and Jasmine's authenticity. And then something unexpected happened. A bipartisan group of congresspeople, including several Republicans, issued a joint statement. It didn't mention Cruz or Crockett by name, but its message was clear. The American people judge us not by our test scores or our degrees, but by our actions. Let us commit ourselves to being measured by the standards that truly matter: truth, service, courage, and integrity. 6 Republican representatives signed it. It was a quiet but unmistakable rebuke of Cruz's challenge and an endorsement of Jasmine's framing. The message had broken through. The conversation had shifted. And Ted Cruz found himself increasingly isolated, even within his own party. But here's the question that matters most. What can we learn from this? How does this moment teach us to recognize true leadership when we see it? Stay watching, because the conclusion ties everything together in a way you won't expect. And if you're getting value from this, don't forget to like and subscribe. So what does this story really teach us? It's not just about Ted Cruz making a mistake or Jasmine Crockett delivering a perfect response. It's about something much deeper that affects every single one of us, whether we're interested in politics or not. It's about the difference between being impressive and being important. Ted Cruz spent his entire career building an impressive resume. Every credential, every debate victory, every Supreme Court argument, all designed to prove he's the smartest person in any room. And in a certain way, he succeeded. His intelligence is undeniable. But Jasmine Crockett demonstrated something that no test can measure: moral clarity. The ability to see past ego and credentials to what actually matters. The courage to reject someone else's framing and offer a better standard. The wisdom to elevate a petty challenge into a meaningful conversation about values. That's not something you learn at Harvard or Princeton. That's not something that shows up on an IQ test. That's character. And character, as we've seen throughout history, is the true measure of leadership. Think about the greatest leaders in American history. Abraham Lincoln had less than a year of formal education. Harry Truman never went to college. Lyndon Johnson graduated from a small state teaching college. Yet each of them demonstrated the moral courage and wisdom to lead the nation through its darkest hours. Meanwhile, history is littered with brilliant people who failed as leaders because they lacked character. Who had all the intelligence in the world but none of the integrity. Who could win every argument but couldn't inspire anyone to follow them toward something better. The lesson of this story isn't, don't value intelligence. Intelligence matters. Education matters. Competence matters. The lesson is, don't mistake credentials for character. Don't confuse being smart with being wise. Don't assume that someone who can win a debate can also win your trust. Jasmine Crockett understood this instinctively. When Ted Cruz challenged her to prove her intelligence, she didn't fall into the trap of accepting his framework. She didn't try to prove she was smarter than him. She simply asked a better question: what test actually matters? And in asking that question, she revealed everything. She revealed that Ted Cruz was more interested in proving his superiority than serving his constituents. She revealed that he valued credentials over character. She revealed that his challenge said far more about his insecurities than about her qualifications. But most importantly, she revealed what true leadership looks like. It looks like someone who refuses to play small ball games. Someone who elevates the conversation instead of lowering themselves to petty attacks. Someone who uses their platform not to boost their own ego but to remind us all of what we should value in our leaders. That's why Ted Cruz's face showed instant regret. Because in that moment, he realized he hadn't just lost an exchange. He had revealed himself. And what he revealed wasn't impressive at all. This story isn't just about politics, it's about life. It's about recognizing that the loudest, most credentialed person in the room isn't always the wisest. Sometimes, the person who truly understands what matters is the one who refuses to play games and instead points us toward truth. If this resonated with you, let us know in the comments below. A week after the confrontation, a reporter caught up with Jasmine Crockett in the halls of Congress. "Congresswoman, Senator Cruz still hasn't responded to your challenge about truth, courage, and service. Do you think he will?" Jasmine smiled, not with triumph, but with genuine hope. "You know what I hope? I hope Senator Cruz uses all that impressive intelligence he has to reflect on this moment. I hope he asks himself whether winning arguments is more important than serving people. I hope he realizes that all his credentials could be put to amazing use if he just shifted his focus from proving he's smart to proving he cares." The reporter pressed, "But would you actually take his IQ test if he still wants to do it?" "Absolutely," Jasmine said without hesitation. "But only if he'll also take my test. Let's both sit down with families who are struggling. Let's listen to their stories. Let's see who can better understand their needs and fight for real solutions. Let's measure ourselves by the standard that actually matters: how effectively we serve the people we're supposed to represent." She paused, her expression growing more serious. "That's the test I take every single day. That's the test every member of Congress should be focused on passing. And that's the test the American people are grading us on, whether we like it or not." It was the perfect final word. Not a victory lap. Not a dismissive joke at Cruz's expense. Just a clear, powerful reminder of what public service actually means. Ted Cruz never responded publicly to that challenge. He moved on to other fights, other controversies, other opportunities to demonstrate his debating skills. But the moment lived on. It lived on in social media clips that continued to circulate months later. It lived on in political science classes that used it as a case study in effective communication. It lived on in conversations around dinner tables about what qualities we should value in our leaders. And most importantly, it lived on as a reminder that true wisdom isn't found in test scores or credentials. It's found in character. In courage, in the willingness to use whatever intelligence we have in service of something larger than ourselves. Jasmine Crockett taught us that lesson in just 15 seconds. And Ted Cruz's face confirmed it in the same instant. The question now is, what will we do with that lesson? Will we continue to be impressed by credentials and debate victories? Or will we start demanding something more from our leaders? Something that can't be measured by any test but can be seen clearly in their choices, their priorities, and their character? The answer to that question will determine the future of American leadership. And unlike an IQ test, it's a question every single one of us has the wisdom to answer. If this story made you think differently about leadership, about intelligence, about what really matters in public service, share it. Talk about it. Let it spark conversations. Because these conversations are how we change our culture, one mind at a time. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories that matter. Until next time, remember, true wisdom isn't about proving you're smart. It's about using whatever intelligence you have to make the world better. And that's a test we can all pass.